Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Fishing System in Food Wars World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 171, The Old Biotope 1, A Reunion of Old Friends. The area was teeming with beasts, but none of them detected Yuki's group. The cloaking ability of Setsuno's camping monster was incredibly powerful, on par with the Octomelon that President Ichiryu had prepared for Toriko and the others. There were no beasts here with super-sensitive perception, so there was no need for Yuki or Setsuno to unleash their auras to intimidate them. Soon, the limousine jellyfish burst out of the storm zone. Ahead of them was a massive island, tens of times larger than the current Biotope 1. The island also had a very peculiar feature, a giant dome covering more than half of it. Yuki knew what this dome was. It the orichalcum from the gourmet world, with a hardness far greater than diamond. It was clear that the red nitro who had gathered here in the past were not weak. Otherwise, they would not have been able to obtain so many materials from the gourmet world. In this world of Toriko, the variety and quantity of materials were staggering. As long as you had the ability, you would never lack for resources. The dome was shaped like a cloche covering a dinner plate. Yuki had read the original story and knew there were two ways to get inside. The first was a passage on the dome itself, a channel left by the red nitro. However, this passage was hidden, it was completely invisible to the naked eye. In the original story, Komatsu had noticed the entrance because of the infinibees. These bees sought out places with abundant sunlight, and places like the golden wheat and the corona sunflower were their favorites. So, the infinibees could directly find the entrance. Without them as a guide, a normal person could search their entire life and never find it. After all, the entrance was only a few dozen meters wide. A few thousand meters in front of this massive dome was nothing. A normal person would have to search inch by inch, but this place was extremely dangerous, so it was likely they would never find the entrance. But for a powerful person, it was different. For example, Yuki had already sensed the entrance. His perception was incredibly powerful. As for the second entrance, it was actually in the sea. But this one was a bit more dangerous. The dome covered a part of the sea, but it couldn't extend all the way to the seabed. So, the creatures in the sea could enter, and others could also enter from here. But this sea was home to a large number of creatures from the gourmet world. So, if your strength was insufficient, it was best not to choose this path. Of course, there was a third way in, though it was a bit peculiar and not a conventional route. That was to be like Jirim in the original story and just smash your way through the dome with brute force. Yuki and Setsuno, of course, would not do such a thing. They weren't like him. What a massive dome! Looking at the immense structure, Nono exclaimed in awe. Though the human world had many wonders of architecture, this dome was clearly a breathtaking sight. This dome was built by the Nitro race back then. They used a type of orichalcum from the gourmet world. It's very hard. Of course, that's only for those who aren't very strong, Setsuno said with a smile. She had been here before and knew the situation. Though this orichalcum sounded impressive, even in the human world, there were quite a few people who could break through it. The Nitro race is truly amazing. After this incident, Nono's impression of the Nitro was even deeper. These Nitros seemed to love building wonders. And their abilities were indeed very powerful. The tornado outside had yet to dissipate, and there was also this massive dome. It could be said that even if the tornado outside disappeared, it would be very difficult for others to enter here. After all, the entrance wasn't easy to find, and just reaching this place was not something an ordinary person could do. Not everyone was like Tom, who could just fly a fighter jet in. The Nitro race is indeed amazing, but that's also built on their almost infinite lifespan. Let me think, if I remember correctly, the entrance should be in that direction. Setsuno looked at the dome and pointed. The limousine jellyfish immediately shot off in the direction she indicated. That's right, this is it. Though the outside looks fine, the flow of the air doesn't lie, Yuki said. The outer layer here was covered with a very special substance, so it looked no different from other places. But an illusion was still an illusion, the flow of gas could not be stopped. As they spoke, the limousine jellyfish directly entered the passage. Its size wasn't large, so entering was no problem. This is so thick. After entering, Nono realized she had underestimated these red nitro. This dome wasn't just a thin layer, it was very thick. When they first entered the passage, they couldn't even see the end. The passage is a kilometer long, which means this dome is a kilometer thick. Yuki had already measured the length of the passage. He was numb to it by now. After all, this world had too many wonders, especially those created by the nitro. Each one was more exaggerated than the last. A kilometer thick. Nono didn't know what to say. It was just too absurd. Seeing her reaction, Setsuno just smiled. When she first came here, she had also been shocked by the thickness of the dome. But she had also seen a lot of the world, so she hadn't shown the same baffled expression as Nono. A kilometer was nothing for the limousine jellyfish, it was out in the blink of an eye. After exiting, the group saw the situation inside the dome. It wasn't completely dark inside just because of the dome. On the contrary, it was just like the outside. They must have used some special technology to simulate the outside weather up there, Yuki said, looking at the scenery above, which was exactly the same as when they had entered. That's right. Though the inside of the dome is semi-enclosed, it simulates the outside weather, whether it's day or night. And the environment inside has also been treated with some special technology, creating all sorts of different climates. Setsuno nodded. With this dome, logically, the ecosystem inside shouldn't be like this. But the technology of the red nitro, combined with the special nature of this world, had created this peculiar ecosystem. Looking down from here, you could clearly see that the interior was divided into several areas, each with a different environment and even climate. Such a peculiar environment had led to a situation where various different ingredients coexisted in one area. Unbelievable! So many ingredients that require special environments to survive are all gathered here. Nono was completely shocked, looking at the various ingredients below. As a chef, she naturally knew the living environments of many ingredients. Take the puffer whale, for example. It lived in the deep sea. But here, it was living in a small river. Besides that, there were also dozens of regal mammoths. You know, on the Regal Plateau, there was only one regal mammoth, no, there was one large and one small. But here, they appeared in herds, dozens of them at a time. And the BB corn, which required a large amount of nutrients. In Wool Jungle, it had to absorb a massive amount of nutrients, the nutrients of the entire continent could only support that much BB corn. But the BB corn here, not only was it bigger than the ones in Wool Jungle, but it was also so dense, and the quantity was terrifying. And what was most eye-catching were the fruit trees. Who knew how exaggerated the nutrients in the soil here were? The fruit trees, from flowering to fruiting to the fruit falling, a single cycle only took a few seconds, and then a new cycle began. As for the fallen fruit, it was immediately carried away by a very agile-looking troop of monkeys. Besides that, Yuki also saw some rainbow fruits. Originally, the area where the rainbow fruit grew required thunderclouds. But the ones here should have been modified by the red nitro, so they didn't need any. Hundreds of rainbow fruit trees were just growing there, and no other creatures approached. The reason was simple. Though the rainbow fruit tasted very good and its aroma was very rich, this was the old biotope one. There were countless delicious foods inside. So, the rainbow fruit had become a very average ingredient here. The ingredients here are quite rich. Let's go find Ayam first. It's been many years since I've seen her. At this moment, the expression on Setsuno's face also relaxed a bit because she had already sensed Granny Ayam's presence. When she first arrived, she was actually a little worried. After all, Granny Iam wasn't young, and her strength was average, so her lifespan couldn't compare to hers. But after entering, she had keenly sensed her presence. Though Granny Iam had also concealed her aura, the power gap was too large. Such a concealment was useless in front of her and Yuki. Yuki naturally wouldn't say much about this. After he met Granny Iam, he could go and capture the other ingredients. This place was an ingredient treasure trove, he wouldn't let these ingredients go. Especially ingredients like the puffer whale and jewel meat. Puffer whales were fine, they could be found in the deep sea. But the quantity of jewel meat in the human world was extremely small. Now that so many were gathered here, he naturally wouldn't let them go. It didn't take long for the group to find Granny Iam in the forest. At this moment, she wasn't using knocking to maintain her youthful state. After all, that method was only temporary and also consumed calories. So, unless she was facing an enemy, she wouldn't use knocking to maintain a youthful state. Iam. Because of its cloaking ability, Granny Iam hadn't discovered the arrival of the limousine jellyfish. But as Setsuno's voice rang out, she, who was feeding a cat, immediately looked up. Setsu. When she saw Setsuno, a series of emotions, astonishment, delight, disbelief, appeared on her face. It was normal for her to have such an expression. After all, she had been living here, almost completely cut off from the outside world. To suddenly see her friend appear here, it would be strange if she weren't surprised. At this moment, Setsuno was also in her elderly state. According to her, it was better not to stimulate her old friend. And Granny Iam had never seen Setsuno in her youth. Though they were friends, her age was less than 100. She had met Setsuno when she was young, and at that time, Setsuno was already an old lady. Long time no see, Iam. Let me introduce you. This is my apprentice, Nono. And this is Yuki, a very impressive chef, and also a gourmet hunter, a sharpener, and a reviver. When Setsuno introduced Yuki, she directly added all his titles. This introduction also left Granny Iam, who had still been immersed in her delight, a bit baffled. A chef who was also a gourmet hunter, she could understand. After all, a small number of talented people could indeed hold both professions. But a sharpener and a reviver on top of that, it completely confused her. Setsu, why did you suddenly come here? Granny Iam greeted Yuki and Nono and then asked impatiently. Because this kid, Yuki, wanted to come here to collect ingredients. I was thinking that we haven't seen each other for a long time, so I came to see you. By the way, I brought you a lot of good things. With that, Setsuno quickly began to unload the various daily necessities from the limousine jellyfish. Thank you so much. These things are very useful to me. Seeing these things, Granny Iam was also very happy. These were exactly what she needed right now. Though she could get by without them, with them, her quality of life would undoubtedly improve a lot. So, she was also very grateful to Setsuno at this moment. Chapter 172, Sharpening for Granny Iam, the Corona Sunflower. Since guests had arrived, Granny Iam took out all the various ingredients she had stored. If you don't mind, let me give this knife a little maintenance. Seeing her kitchen knife, Yuki couldn't help but speak up. Though it looked fine to the naked eye, in the eyes of a master sharpener like him, it was in terrible condition. It was normal. A chef's knife needed to be maintained. It was clear that she had learned some basic maintenance methods, but compared to a professional sharpener, especially a master like him, it was a world of difference. Even Setsuno's knife needed to be sent to melt for maintenance after a period of use. Granny Iam's knife had been used here for decades and was now covered in scars. Then I'll leave it to you. Granny Iam was stunned for a moment, but then she suddenly remembered that Setsuno had said he was a master sharpener. Since Setsuno had said so, she naturally believed it. She also knew very well that her own maintenance methods were quite poor. So, it was better to leave it to him. One moment. I'll go find a whetstone. With that, Yuki vanished. He was so fast that only Setsuno could see how he left. The other two only saw him disappear into thin air. So fast. Seeing this, Granny Iam's eyes went wide. She had originally thought that a young man like him, even if he was strong, couldn't be that strong. And he was also juggling so many professions. But the speed he had just displayed completely baffled her. It was so fast that she couldn't see any trace of his movement. This showed that the power gap between them was huge. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. After leaving, Yuki returned after a short while. He now had a whetstone in his hand. This wasn't the milk stardust, he wouldn't just carry that around with him everywhere. This whetstone was one of the many he had in storage. He had just made an excuse to leave their line of sight to get it. It wouldn't be good to just pull it out of thin air. He didn't want to expose his spatial ability just yet. There were surely many suitable whetstones on this island, but he was too lazy to look. After he returned with the whetstone, Granny Iam handed him her knife. Taking it, Yuki began to sharpen. Just like the two milks, his sharpening speed was terrifyingly fast, even faster than the second generation. As he sharpened, the song of the blade and a bright light became a continuous stream. The group was very surprised. Though Setsuno knew his sharpening ability was strong, she hadn't expected him to be this strong. His performance in this area was frightening. The milk style of sharpening, you need to do it correctly to produce the song and the light. But now, every single time is a success. It's unbelievable. I thought only the two milks could do that. Setsuno couldn't describe how monstrous Yuki was. His proficiency as a reviver was already on par with Yasaku's. She didn't even need Yasaku to tell her that she knew it. After all, Yuki had used reviver techniques to research the fusion of food immersion and damage knocking. She never thought that his sharpening skills would also be so strong that even she was completely shocked. This is the milk style of sharpening? So he's the new generation milk? Granny Iam was completely isolated from the outside world. She only knew of the first generation milk. No, he's not the new generation. The current second generation milk is the first generation's adopted daughter. As for Yuki, he just studied with her for a while. Setsuno shook her head. After hearing her words, Granny Iam fell silent again. She had already witnessed his strength as a gourmet hunter and a sharpener. What about the other two? Chef and reviver, they probably weren't weak either. How old is he now? She couldn't help but ask. She was curious. Was his current youthful appearance his actual age, or was he an old man using a special knocking technique? After all, she herself often used knocking to restore her youthful state. He's not even 20 yet. However, Setsuno's one sentence made Granny Iam fall silent again. Not even 20, yet he had reached such a high level in these fields, she was speechless. Unbelievable. Are all the youngsters nowadays this scary? She muttered to herself. She was starting to wonder if the entire outside world had become this unreal. Had it changed so drastically in the few decades she had been out of touch? Granny Iam, not everyone is as unreal as Chef Yuki. At least, I'm not. Nono spoke up. She explained that his situation was a one-in-a-million case. The other young people couldn't compare to him. After all, whether it was her, Teppei, or the second-generation milk, they were all very strong in their respective fields, with exceptional talent. But in front of him, they were just mediocrities. So, Yuki was a special case. You couldn't use him to represent all young people. I see. A special case? I understand. Granny Iam nodded. After about 10 minutes, Yuki's work was done. Maintenance and forging were completely different. Forging took a lot of time, but maintenance didn't need to be so troublesome. But her knife had too many problems after decades of use, so it took him over 10 minutes. It's done. Granny Iam, take a look. After finishing, he handed the knife to her. The moment she took it, she felt that her knife was completely different. After all, she was also a powerful chef, she could feel it. At this moment, the knife felt as if it had just been forged. You know, this knife had been with her for decades. She never thought it could be restored to such a state. Give me your knives too. I'll take this opportunity to maintain them. It'll save you a trip to the second-generation milk later. Yuki said. Nono's and Setsuno's knives also needed maintenance, especially Setsuno's. Though her knife was a transformable knife, it didn't mean it didn't need maintenance. In that case, thank you so much. Setsuno directly took out her knife, Taketsuba, and handed it to him. Seeing this, Nono also immediately took out her own. Their knives also hadn't been maintained for a while. They had originally planned to send them to Milk Mountain for maintenance. But now that Yuki, who had sharpening skills that surpassed Milk's, was here, giving them to him was better, and also more convenient. Sending them to Milk Mountain for maintenance would take half a month to a month for a round trip. Taking their knives, Yuki inspected them and then began to sharpen them. In the end, Setsuno's knife took 10 minutes, and Nono's took less than 1. Setsuno's knife didn't have too many problems, but due to the quality of the whetstone and the very precious material used for her knife, the sharpening took some time. If he had used the Milk Stardust, he would have been even faster. It was just that it wasn't suitable to take it out here. As expected of you, Yuki. In any field you dabble in, you reach a formidable height. Looking at the knife in her hand, Setsuno said. A good knife was very important for a chef. Of the orders the second-generation Milk received, some were for maintenance of damage as small as 1/1000th of a millimeter. This was because the more advanced the chef, the more precise their knife needed to be. Otherwise, there would be big problems when preparing some special ingredients, and a high probability of failure. It's all because everyone was eager to teach me, or else I wouldn't have had anywhere to learn, would I? Yuki said with a smile. He wasn't wrong. Whether it was knocking, cooking, or the techniques of a reviver and a sharpener, everyone had taught him without reservation. Or his growth wouldn't have been so fast. He wouldn't deny this and think that he had achieved everything on his own. He was very clear that he was a cheat player. His achievements today, besides his own efforts, were mostly due to external forces. Let's stop with the pleasantries. Since the knives are done, I should also get moving. After getting her knife, Setsuno was itching to get to work. After that, everyone threw themselves into cooking. During this time, Granny Ayam discovered something that left her completely shocked again. That was that Yuki's culinary skills had also surpassed hers. This was the most terrifying part. The shocks he had brought her were too many. She felt she was becoming a bit numb. During the meal, Yuki also mentioned the purpose of his visit. What? You came for that ingredient? No, that ingredient is sealed. It's too dangerous to release. Before she could finish, Granny Ayam saw Setsuno and didn't know how to continue. If you wanted to talk about strength, the person in front of her was the most horrifying. Ayam had met Setsuno when she was young. It wasn't until she was middle-aged that she had built a good relationship with her, and then they slowly became friends. But not long after becoming friends, Jirim had chosen to leave. In the end, she had chosen to stay here and guard it. Because she knew very well that he would definitely find his way here. Because Acacia's hidden menu was here. Jirim was truly tragic. To find Acacia's hidden menu, he had joined the Gourmet Corporation. But his own partner had been guarding it all along. If he hadn't abandoned her, he wouldn't have had to go through such a big circle. The reason he was whitewashed in the end was probably because he was severely injured by Toriko. The power of his fists was not something to be taken lightly. In the end, Jirim needed a cane to walk. It was because of this that Ichiryu and the others hadn't bothered him. Or else, even if there was some relationship, they wouldn't have let a guy like him continue to stay here. Don't worry, Ayam. That ingredient isn't that scary. With this kid's strength, he can totally handle it. And even if he can't, aren't I here? Setsuno said with a smile. In that case, I won't stop you. But give me some time. The ingredient that powers the sealing device is the Corona sunflower. It absorbs sunlight to provide energy to the seal. To undo the seal, you need to cut off the energy supply first. I don't want to destroy those Corona sunflowers, so give me some time to transplant them, Granny Iam said. The living environment of the Corona sunflower was also very harsh, so its quantity was very rare. But she knew how to nourish it. After all, it was one of her and Jiram's partner ingredients. So she had long figured out the specific situation of the Corona sunflower. Give her some time, and in less than a day, she could move all of them. Then thank you so much, Granny Iam. By the way, can you give me some Corona sunflowers when you transplant them? Yuki asked. Granny Iam didn't refuse. After all, the number of Corona sunflowers wasn't small, and she could also nourish more. She knew very well that since he was here to collect ingredients, he certainly wouldn't let the Corona sunflower go. She also didn't see any problem with it. Though it was her and Jiram's partner ingredient, it didn't mean others couldn't eat it. For someone to like eating the Corona sunflower was also a good thing for her. In that case, let's start transplanting tomorrow. Before that, didn't you come here for other ingredients, Yuki? Go and capture them first. By the way, take Nono with you, Setsuno said, entrusting Nono to Yuki's care. He didn't refuse. These two had been reunited after a long time. Let them have a good chat. Taking Nono with him wasn't a problem. There was no danger for him here, so he could take her. If it were the gourmet world, then he wouldn't take anyone else with him. After all, the gourmet world was too dangerous. He could only guarantee his own safety. Chapter 173, Nono's Admiration, the Five-Color Universe. Setsuno, you're trying to set Nono up with him, aren't you? Granny Iam asked as soon as Yuki and Nono had left. She could see right through it. Arranging for Nono to go with him was clearly a move to push them together, to build a relationship. You saw it too, huh? That's right. I do want Nono to become his partner. She's my apprentice, after all. I have to think about her future. Yuki's abilities are just too powerful. He's the most talented person I've ever met, in every single aspect. I don't even think Acacia-sama or Frosi-sama could compare to him. If she could become his partner, it would be a wonderful thing for her, Setsuno said with a smile. It was what any parent would do, look out for the children. A pity that their own descendants consisted of a rough-and-tumble guy like Teppei. So, Setsuno could only look out for her apprentice. Of course, it wasn't uncommon for men to partner with men in the world of Toriko. While partnerships between men and women often led to romance, partnerships between two women or two men were usually just deep friendships. There were, of course, a few rare exceptions. That might not be so easy. You've seen how exceptional he is. Incredible strength, unparalleled cooking, and master-level sharpening skills. His reviver techniques are probably the same. He's a complete all-rounder. A person like that doesn't need a partner, especially not one who is inferior to him in every way. Granny Iam shook her head. In her eyes, Yuki was simply too powerful and self-sufficient to need a partner who would only hold him back. It's precisely because he's so powerful, so self-sufficient, that he doesn't need a partner, which also means he wouldn't mind having one. He doesn't have to choose a partner based on their abilities. Setsuno countered with a smile. She understood the logic, of course. But a partnership wasn't just about mutual assistance. It held another meaning, the kind of meaning she and Jiro shared. This, of course, was a sore subject for Granny Iam. That scumbag Jiram had abandoned her, yet she still held a one-sided love for him. He, however, couldn't care less. Perhaps. Granny Iam had guessed as much, but she didn't want to continue the conversation and quickly changed the subject. Meanwhile, Yuki had no idea that Setsuno was trying to set him up with her apprentice. And just as they had thought, he didn't need a partner. He was already a master of all trades. He couldn't imagine anyone being better than him in his fields of expertise. His weakest area right now was his raw strength. His cooking was already on par with Setsuno's, and even showing signs of surpassing it. His reviver proficiency was no less than Mohian Sheishai's or Yasaku's. His sharpening skills had already surpassed the second-generation Melk. As for the first generation, they had never competed, so he couldn't be sure. And while his knocking couldn't yet compare to Jiro's, that was only due to the limitations of his power level. Without that restriction, his knocking might have already surpassed Jiro's. There were many techniques he simply couldn't use yet, with no opportunity to practice. "Chef Yuki, which ingredient should we capture next?" Nono asked after they had left. In truth, she held a deep admiration for him. Nono was, at her core, a very proud person. Though it didn't show on the surface, she was. In the original story, when she met Komatsu, she had never said anything to his face, but she had never understood why her master had invested so much in him. On one hand, she was Setsuno's apprentice, yet her master paid more attention to Komatsu than to her. She had constantly created opportunities for him, allowing his culinary skills to grow at a rapid pace. Even when making the Zenmen, Nono had asked why she was training him when they could do a better job themselves. It wasn't until the Four-Beast incident that she finally realized just how important Komatsu was. After that, her opinion of him changed completely. Nono's talent was immense, and she was the sole apprentice of a gourmet national treasure. It was only natural for her to be proud. But her pride never manifested on the surface, and it was always directed at ability, never at a person's character. So, she would never look down on someone because of her pride. She just couldn't understand her master's actions. But now, she wasn't facing Komatsu, she was facing Yuki. From the very beginning, the culinary skills he had displayed had been enough to shock her. And his growth in every other aspect had been a constant source of wonder. In front of him, she felt like a complete mediocrity. He not only possessed all sorts of miraculous abilities but also surpassed her in every technique, and he was still growing at an incredible speed. This had caused her admiration for him to grow deeper and deeper. A young girl admiring a young man, it was a very normal thing. As long as one's orientation was normal, when an attractive person of the opposite sex who was excellent in every way and had a good character appeared, it was impossible not to be moved. Nono was no exception. Her feelings for him had gone from calm indifference at the beginning to surprise, then to admiration, and finally, to affection. This change had happened over time. But she had also witnessed his immense power. She was a chef, the only thing she had to offer was her cooking. But now, his culinary skills had already reached Setsuno's level. It was obvious she couldn't offer him any help in that area. So, though she had feelings for him, she had never dared to confess. She knew the distance between them was too great. That distance made her retreat. Setsuno, as someone who had been through it, had naturally noticed this. In fact, her own past was quite similar. Jiro's master was the gourmet god Acacia. When she had joined, Midora hadn't even appeared yet. So, whether it was Acacia, Frozy, Ichiryu, or Jiro, their abilities were far beyond hers. The Setsuno of that time was not the gourmet national treasure she was now. Before being taught by Frozy, she had felt a certain sense of inferiority upon joining that family. But Frozy's kindness was beyond words. With her help, Setsuno had broken through her mental barriers and had worked tirelessly to improve her culinary skills. And she had chosen to stay. Later, after Midora joined, she had discovered that his talent was also terrifying. She was also very fortunate. At that time, the only chefs were her and Frozy. Frozy was Acacia's partner, and she was Jiro's. Nono's situation was even worse than Setsuno's back then. After all, Yuki's talent was something even Frozy couldn't compare to. So, Setsuno had also counseled Nono, and now she was even helping to create opportunities. The rest was up to Nono herself. If she couldn't make a decision, then no matter how much Setsuno tried to help, it would be useless. Let's go for the jewel meat first. Though it's a human world ingredient, it tastes incredibly good. I've been craving it ever since we had it last time. A pity it's so hard to find a regal mammoth in the outside world. Yuki said. Don't be fooled by the regal mammoth's massive size, there were plenty of kilometer-class beasts in the outside world. So, Yuki hadn't gone looking for another one, waiting instead to come here to capture this ingredient. The regal mammoths here were very easy to find. A herd of dozens of them was running across the land. You'd have to be blind to miss them. The jewel meat is indeed a very precious ingredient. It's almost impossible to find in the outside world. I've only had it a few times thanks to my master. Nono said. The regal mammoth didn't just exist in the human world. There were also some in the gourmet world, though they were larger and stronger. But neither Jiro nor Setsuno would go out of their way to capture the jewel meat from them. They would only capture some if they happened to see one. Nono only had it a few times. She also missed its taste. In that case, let's go for the jewel meat first. With that, Yuki took the lead. Nono immediately followed. The two of them chatted about various topics along the way. He often stayed at Setsuno's, so he was very familiar with Nono. They were both chefs and had common topics to discuss. Of course, most of the time, it was Nono asking him for advice. After all, his culinary skills were far superior to hers. Is this where the Nitro race used to live? A pity it's all in ruins now. On their way to capture the jewel meat, Nono and Yuki passed through a village. It had been in decay for a long time, with only some broken walls remaining. That's right. It was left by the Red Nitro. The characters on this are their language. Yuki said. Red Nitro? Are there different colors of Nitro? Nono asked with confusion. She only knew of the Nitro, she didn't know they were divided by color. The Nitro are actually divided into two groups, the Red Nitro and the Blue Nitro. Of course, this division isn't based on their skin color, but the color of their cells. Yuki explained. The Nitros that appeared in the original story came in all sorts of colors. Red Nitro was a general term for the color of their cells, not their skin. The color of their cells? Cells have different colors? This was the first time Nono had heard such a thing. That's right. Gourmet cells have different colors. This is mainly related to the universe. Did you know? There isn't just one universe, there are 5. The 5 universes each have their own color: red, blue, green, white, and black. Gourmet cells exist in each universe, so to differentiate them, they are classified by color. Yuki nodded, telling Nono about the 5-color universe. So our universe is the red one? But then why are there blue Nitro in our universe? Shouldn't they be in the blue universe? Nono was confused again. That's right, the blue Nitro should be living in the blue universe. But because of an accident, the blue universe has basically been destroyed. To escape, and also for a certain matter, the blue Nitro came to the red universe. Then they discovered the Red Nitro race. Logically, they should be part of the same race, but the blue Nitro are very arrogant. They called themselves the Gourmet Nobles and enslaved the Red Nitro. Yuki said. He could understand their arrogance. He just found them disgusting. Perhaps it was because of their infinite lifespan and their bug-like ability to revive after a period of time even after death. But in terms of strength, these guys were really not that good. And there were ways to deal with them. Though they would revive after being killed, there were ways not to kill them. For example, using the same method as NEO. The creatures NEO devoured were stored in a space within its body. Yuki didn't know how big this space was, but to be able to hold all the ingredients of the blue universe, it meant the space within NEO was terrifyingly large. The blue Nitro it devoured didn't die. They were just sealed, which was no different from being dead. The best way to deal with these blue Nitro was to seal them. Of course, he didn't plan to deal with them now, he didn't have the strength. When his strength was high enough, he wouldn't let them go. As long as you were human, you were an enemy of the blue Nitro. They captured humans to be used as fuel and ingredients. How could he let them go? Chapter 174, The Savannah Dragon, an ingredient that affects the soul, Yuki's idea. A universe destroyed? Enslaving the red nitro? After hearing Yuki's explanation, Nono was completely in a state of shock. Forget about universes, she didn't even enter the gourmet world on her own planet yet. But the matter of the nitro had already touched upon the destruction of a universe. This scale was something she simply couldn't imagine. As for the blue nitro enslaving the red nitro, she also felt there was a big problem. Though they were part of the same race and hadn't had any interaction before, it didn't mean it was right for the blue nitro to enslave the red nitro. If it were her, in this situation, she might have a friendly exchange, or she might just ignore them. But she would never think of enslaving them. It could only be said that in the eyes of the vast majority of humans, the blue nitro were trash. Of course, this only applied to humans. For other races, it was different. After all, whether it was the appetite demon race or the beasts, they always believed in the law of the jungle. We don't need to think too much about these problems. After all, this isn't a realm we can touch. Wait a moment, let me see if I can translate these characters. Yuki said. He had told Nono because the topic had come up. As for right and wrong and other things, he didn't plan to get involved. After all, he didn't have the ability right now. If you wanted to manage these things, you had to improve your own strength. Only when your strength reached that level could you do such things. Otherwise, thinking about it was useless. At this moment, he was trying to translate the Nitro characters. While he had gotten the cookbook before and had translated most of the characters on it, that book didn't contain all the characters of the Nitro race. So, now that he had run into a Nitro ruin and these characters, he naturally had to try to translate them. Even though some of the characters were incomplete, he had an evolving vision that surpassed Coco's. Coco could complete a partial mural with his vision. Yuki's ability was even stronger, so completing these characters was not a problem. A completed character couldn't be completely deciphered, he could use the characters he could already read to decipher the others. While it was a bit troublesome, as long as there were enough characters, he could gradually translate them. The process of reading the characters didn't take much time. Soon, he had translated most of the content. Chef Yuki, have you deciphered it already? Seeing him stop, Nono couldn't help but ask. She couldn't read these characters. For him to be able to decipher even the language of the Nitro race, she was very surprised, and her admiration for him grew even more. I've deciphered it. These characters record a part of the establishment of the former Biotope 1 and information on various ingredients. Most critically, there's also information about that thing. Yuki said, pointing to the massive sealing device. Information about an ingredient from Acacia's special menu? Hearing this, Nono was shocked again. She didn't know what ingredient was sealed inside. She never thought she would get the answer here. That's right. According to the Red Nitro's records, what's sealed in there should be the last wolf fire dragon in this world. Yuki nodded, telling her what the sealed ingredient was. Wolf fire dragon? That name sounds familiar. I think I've seen records of it somewhere. It said that this species is on par with the battle wolf species. But the book only recorded that much. Nono remembered the information about the wolf fire dragon. In their past studies, they had to be very clear about the information of various ingredients. Otherwise, walking in the world would be very dangerous. Although the information on the ingredients from the gourmet world wasn't complete, they had what Setsuno and Jiro had collected, so she also knew a little about the wolf fire dragon. That's right. According to the records here, the wolf fire dragon race lost in a competition with the battle wolf, and in the end, the entire race was destroyed by them. The Red Nitro captured the last one and sealed it here. And there's also some introduction about the wolf fire dragon here. Yuki looked at the text and explained. Before, he had thought that the wolf fire dragon being on par with the battle wolf was complete nonsense. Normally in the gourmet world, a massive size didn't mean slow speed. The most typical examples were the Horse King and the Snake King. The Horse King was 22 kilometers tall and 30 kilometers long. This massive size was like a moving giant mountain, but its speed was not slow. When fighting, its speed was even more terrifying. The Snake King was even more so. Its body was hundreds of thousands of kilometers long, but its movement speed was astonishingly fast. A massive size didn't mean slow speed. And the Wolf Fire Dragon's performance in the original story might have been due to being sealed for a long time. Such a slow speed couldn't be entirely due to the seal. In other words, the Wolf Fire Dragon race was inherently a slow species. A massive size paired with slow speed, in the gourmet world, that was quite fatal. And the Battle Wolf race, though its size was also very large to humans, for the creatures of the gourmet world, its size was actually considered small. A small size, fast speed, and strong attack power, these species were terrifying in a fight. But now, according to these Red Nitro records, Yuki finally knew why the two were on par. The Wolf Fire Dragon race indeed had a hard time fighting against the Battle Wolf race. But it also had a very special characteristic. Its power was more targeted at the soul. This reminded Yuki of Jirim. After eating the Wolf Fire Dragon in the original story, the Appetite Demon apparition he released had also turned into a Wolf Fire Dragon. The Wolf Fire Dragon was a living creature, not an appetite demon. That was certain. So, it absolutely couldn't become an appetite demon. But what Jirim released when fighting Toriko was indeed a Wolf Fire Dragon. Now, Yuki had finally found the answer. The soul of the Wolf Fire Dragon race was very strong. When a normal creature died, its soul would enter the world of souls. But the Wolf Fire Dragon was different. After death, its soul would remain in its body for a period of time. During this time, if other creatures ate its flesh, they would be influenced by it. Of course, it wasn't possession. The soul of the Wolf Fire Dragon would only affect the consciousness of the creature that ate its flesh, making them lose their reason and become incredibly arrogant. You know, the Wolf Fire Dragon was a creature that lived in the gourmet world. In the gourmet world, besides beings like the Eight Kings, if other creatures developed such a mentality, they would almost be doomed. At that time, these creatures that had eaten the flesh of the Wolf Fire Dragon wouldn't care if their enemies were stronger than them. They would attack them as if they had gone berserk. It could be said that the Wolf Fire Dragon was a kind of flesh curse. The influence on Jirim in the original story was very great. The corrosive ability of its flesh was already strong, and he had swallowed it alive. As a result, he was greatly affected and ended up in that state. After Yuki told Nono some of the introduction about the Wolf Fire Dragon, she also knew the terror of this ingredient. I didn't expect there to be such a horrifying ingredient in this world. Eating it without knowing would be a dead end. Nono said with some shock. It's not necessarily a dead end. As long as you have a strong enough soul, you can resist the corrosion of the Wolf Fire Dragon. These nitros can easily do it. Yuki said. While these red nitro weren't strong, they had long lifespans. The long time had continuously polished their souls, so their souls were very strong, and while the flesh of the Wolf Fire Dragon would corrode the soul, it couldn't even stir up a wave in the souls of the red nitro and would be directly devoured. The red nitro had discovered this when they ate the flesh of the Wolf Fire Dragon. But the flesh of the Wolf Fire Dragon also had a positive effect. As long as the soul resisted and was not affected, you could counter-devour it. After devouring the soul of the Wolf Fire Dragon, you could strengthen your own soul. So, in a sense, the Wolf Fire Dragon was a soul ingredient. But the premise was that your soul had to be stronger than it. Otherwise, it was all for naught, and you would fall into its trap yourself. Yuki didn't dare to gamble, so he planned to kill the Wolf Fire Dragon and let its flesh sit for a period of time to ensure its soul had dissipated before eating it. Taking Nono, Yuki came to a plain. There were a large number of regal mammoths here. It was hard to imagine the scene of dozens of them running together. If you got a little closer, it was a super earthquake that surpassed a magnitude 12. But for super strong beings like him and Nono, it wasn't a problem. Looking at these regal mammoths, Yuki's calories formed a series of flying needles, which quickly pierced into their bodies. In the blink of an eye, all the regal mammoths stopped in place, motionless. The knocking was complete. Roar! Just as he finished the knocking and was about to go and capture the jewel meat, a massive roar suddenly came, and then a behemoth fell from the sky, its target being these regal mammoths. A savanna dragon. Seeing its figure, Yuki naturally recognized it. A savanna dragon, a distant relative of the tundra dragon from the ice hell. Their color, size, and strength were all different. The strength of this savanna dragon was close to level 100. At this moment, its target was these regal mammoths. This savanna dragon looked more like a dragon than the tundra dragon. But for Yuki, they were all ingredients, there was no difference. He already had a camping monster prepared for him by Jiro. He didn't need this savanna dragon. And taming such a beast was very troublesome. He didn't have time to waste on it. As the savanna dragon approached, Yuki's knocking also caught up. The next second, the massive dragon fell directly next to the regal mammoths. My prey is not for you to touch. Yuki looked at the savanna dragon in front of him. He had already considered it his own food reserve. For the regal mammoths, he was only taking the jewel meat. But this savanna dragon was a solid ingredient. He naturally wouldn't let such an ingredient go. Later, Yuki captured a lot of jewel meat. But because Nono was here, he didn't put it in his storage space but used knocking on the ingredients. The purpose of this knocking was also very clear, to preserve freshness. This was a mid-level knocking technique. Just like many ingredients that were knocked for hundreds of years and were still alive, the same went for this preservation knocking. It could keep ingredients in their freshest state for decades. This was actually the prototype of eternal knocking. Yuki could now easily keep these ingredients in this optimal state for 100 years. As for Nono, she had originally wanted to help freeze these ingredients. Her freezing was different from normal freezing, it also had a similar effect to preservation knocking. As long as the time limit was not exceeded, the ingredients would always be fresh. There was no need to worry about them turning into a pile of zombie meat like when you put them in the refrigerator. Chapter 175, The Nitro's Hidden Grill, The Corona Sunflower's Effect, Improved Inferno Fire. After handing the ingredients over to Setsuno and the others, Yuki continued his hunt. It wasn't until he and Nono were passing a mountain that they saw a very peculiar stone monument. Chef Yuki, look! There are more written records left by the red nitro over there. Nono said. The sight of it felt strangely familiar to Yuki. When he saw the characters on it, he finally knew why. So it's this thing. Let's see, the activation method is. Yuki looked at the content on the monument and began to tamper with it. Soon, the nitro characters on the stone seemed to charge up, emitting a blue light. What's happening? Seeing this, Nono asked with confusion. The other records hadn't reacted like this. This is an activation device. It records that the red nitro race stored a giant grill here. As long as you can read the text, you'll know how to activate it. The moment Yuki's voice fell, the entire former Biotope 1 began to shake. What's going on? An earthquake? Back at their camp, Setsuno and Granny Ayam felt the vibrations. Ayam was stunned, it was the first time she had felt an earthquake since coming here. It's not an earthquake. Something is coming out. Setsuno could feel that the vibration was caused by something emerging from the earth. Soon, the stone monuments on the various mountain peaks shot upwards. One by one, the devices were activated. Massive metal arms extended from them, connecting to the surrounding mountaintops. Soon, a giant metal network, covering a fifth of the entire former Biotope 1, had appeared. What is this thing? Ayam, do you know? Looking at the enormous metal network, Setsuno couldn't help but ask. She had no idea such a thing existed here. It wasn't in any of the IGO's records. She didn't think President Ichiria would hide information from her, she had access to anything she wanted to check in the IGO's database. And Ichiria wasn't the type to deliberately keep secrets from her, unless it was dangerous. But she couldn't sense the slightest hint of danger. I don't know. This is the first time I've seen it. Maybe it has something to do with Yuki and Nono. Let's go have a look. Granny Ayam suggested. Before they arrived, everything here had been peaceful. But after they came, this had happened. She would never believe it had nothing to do with him. Let's go see then. Though she couldn't sense Yuki's aura, she could clearly sense Nono's. Following it, the two of them soon found their location. Looks like you two know what's going on. Care to explain? Seeing the two of them standing next to a stone monument from which the metal was extending, Setsuno knew they were involved. It's like this, Master. When Chef Yuki and I were passing by, we saw this monument with nitro text on it. Chef Yuki can decipher the content, so we stopped. The monument recorded that a giant barbecue grill was hidden here, and the activation method was on it. So, Chef Yuki activated it. Nono explained what had happened. You can already completely decipher their language? Setsuno didn't know what to say. While Yuki had deciphered the cookbook before, it was far from the complete nitro language. But how long had it been? And he had already deciphered everything from the remaining text here. Not all of it, but close enough. As long as there are enough nitro characters, I can figure out the meaning from the general context and then piece it together. Yuki said. Though he made it sound easy, both Setsuno and Granny Ayam were speechless. In this world, only he could probably decipher an entire race's language so easily. So, looking at the massive metal frame, Setsuno asked again. That's right, it's a barbecue grill. The switch is right here. With that, Yuki fiddled with a spot on the monument. Instantly, a massive amount of fire erupted from the grill. The nitros were all big eaters. It's not that hard to understand them building a grill this big. Yuki said with a smile. It seems Acacia-sama's real hidden menu was this grill, not the ingredients sealed in there. Setsuno made the same guess as in the original story, believing this was Acacia's hidden menu. Yuki didn't offer his own opinion. He didn't know if Acacia had discovered the issue here back then, but it didn't matter. He couldn't be bothered with it, it was just a barbecue grill. Since this is the gourmet god Acacia's hidden menu, then there's probably no need to unseal the ingredient, right? Granny Ayam said. While she had already transplanted most of the Corona sunflowers, she still felt it was better not to undo the seal unless necessary. No, we still have to undo the seal. Because the ingredient inside is also a very good one. With that, Yuki told the two of them the specific information about the wolf fire dragon, including the issue with its soul. An ingredient that involves the soul, no wonder the wolf fire dragon could be on par with the battle wolf back then. A pity their race was still wiped out in the end. Setsuno finally understood what made the wolf fire dragon special. So your reviver techniques can also revive an ingredient like this? Granny Ayam, who already knew Yuki was an all-rounder but didn't know the extent of his proficiency as a reviver, once again caught the key point in his idea. Yuki could actually revive an ingredient like the wolf fire dragon. It's not a difficult matter. For a reviver at our level, reviving an ingredient like the wolf fire dragon is as simple as it gets. Yuki stated. The ability of a reviver was incredibly powerful. In the original story, Mohian Sheishai had revived the four beast after it was defeated by Ichiryu, and Yasaku could revive the gourmet show window. He had even revived the flower field that nurtured Earth. Yuki's skills were in no way inferior to those two, he could naturally revive the wolf fire dragon with ease. It's probably only not difficult for you. Setsuno rolled her eyes. There were very few people in this world who could say such a thing. Yuki just happened to be one of them. And most critically, he had reached such a height in just a few short months. Well, let's not talk about that. Since this grill is already out, let's use it. I'll go capture the ingredients. How about you three handle the cooking? Yuki asked. Hearing this, the three of them nodded. It was clear they also wanted to try out this grill. Just like that, Yuki was responsible for capturing the ingredients, and the others were responsible for cooking. Soon, a series of giant skewers were made. Besides that, Yuki also found the place where the Red Nitro had stored their cooking utensils. These utensils were specially made for making giant skewers. After he found them, it became much more convenient for Setsuno and the others. After all, making giant skewers required a lot of things. The skewers they had made before were all made by cutting down and shaping the giant trees here. But now, the giant utensils stored by the Red Nitro had solved this problem. There were giant metal skewers and various tools for making seasonings. In the end, it took less than an hour to make over 100 giant skewers. Each skewer weighed dozens of tons. Such a weight was completely unimaginable for an ordinary person, but for Yuki and the others, eating it was very simple. This firepower is really something, Granny Ayam said with a sigh. Normal flames could hardly cook through super large chunks of meat. So, as powerful chefs, they naturally had special fire handling techniques. Komatsu had learned a lot of these techniques after returning from the gourmet world in the original story, carrying a floating stove and flames with him. Those were all special techniques and materials from the gourmet world. Yuki had originally thought about using his own ability to heat them, but this grill was clearly not normal. It wasn't just big. And now, they had made these excellent giant skewers. By the way, Yuki, here's the Corona sunflower you wanted. With that, Granny Ayam handed the Corona sunflower to him. Seeing it, he didn't bother with the giant meat skewers anymore. What he wanted to eat now was this. It was already night. The interior simulated the outside environment, so when it was night outside, the former Biotope one would also enter night. Eating the Corona sunflower was easy. You just had to twist it and squeeze out the single drop of golden liquid inside. This was all its essence. In the original story, Toriko had an explosive power-up after eating it and had defeated Jirim. There might have been some exaggeration in the anime, but Yuki felt this ingredient was not normal. The moment he drank it, his body began to emit a dazzling golden light. His aura began to skyrocket, and his gourmet cells directly activated, his muscles constantly expanding. He could clearly feel an incomparably scorching power entering his body. Not only were his gourmet cells strengthened, but even his inferno ability had changed. The incandescent white flames gradually turned into a pure gold. The golden flames seemed to be able to burn everything, spreading around his body. What is that flame? Everyone, get back! Although she didn't feel any high temperature, seeing the scene of the flames burning everything around him, Setsuno felt a hint of danger and pulled Nono and Granny Ayam back. At this moment, in a radius of several meters around Yuki, everything was burned to nothingness. He was just floating in mid-air. Ayam, the Corona sunflower is your and Jirim's partner ingredient. Did this happen when you ate it before? Setsuno asked after pulling the two of them back to a certain distance. The commotion he was making was a bit too big, and it was related to the Corona sunflower he had just eaten, so she had to find out what was going on. I don't know. When Jirim and I ate it before, nothing like this ever happened. Our bodies would just glow, that's all. But this? Granny Ayam also didn't know where these flames had come from. And looking at him, his reaction was much stronger than hers and Jirim's. Nothing like this happened to you? Could it be because the Corona sunflower is a perfect match for Yuki's ingredients? At this moment, Setsuno could only guess. After all, she knew he had a flame ability. It was just that his flames were white before. But now, they weren't white anymore, they were a pure gold. And these golden flames were much stronger than his previous white ones. They could even make her feel danger. Just as they were guessing what was going on, the flames quickly receded, eventually disappearing. Yuki's body also returned to its normal state. Sorry everyone, the effect of the Corona sunflower was a bit too good just now, so I couldn't suppress it for a moment. Yuki said. The benefits the Corona sunflower had brought him had truly exceeded his imagination. Besides activating his cells and making him a lot stronger in one go, the most critical thing was that it had caused his inferno to evolve again. The Corona sunflower had absorbed a large amount of sunlight, and this particular one had existed for a long time. Perhaps because of the guidance of food luck, the one Granny Iam had brought was the oldest one. It contained a massive amount of solar energy. While the ones planted here would continuously supply energy to the sealing device and nutrients to the earth, the energy left in it was still very terrifying. This one mouthful for Yuki was equivalent to swallowing the energy of the sun directly into his mouth. The energy of the sun was not something his flames could compare to. The combination of the two had ultimately given birth to these pure golden flames, whose power was who knows how many times greater than his previous white ones. Chapter 176, Unsealing the Wolf Fire Dragon, a Terrifying Size. This must be an ingredient that is perfectly suited for your gourmet cells. You'll be putting it on your full-course menu, right? Speaking of which, Yuki, how much of your full-course menu have you completed? Setsuno was also very curious. From the time she had known him until now, she still didn't know what his full-course menu was. Nono and Granny Iam also pricked up their ears. They were also very curious, especially Nono. She greatly admired him, and the partners of many gourmet hunters and chefs would have partner ingredients. For example, many of the items on Toriko's full-course menu were captured with Komatsu. Granny Iam and Jirim had also found the Corona sunflower back then. A pity Jirim was a scumbag. Full-course menu? I don't have one. Yuki shook his head. He really didn't plan to make one. In the world of Toriko, the existence of a full-course menu was mainly for two reasons. The first was that people hoped to obtain ingredients that moved them deeply, to put these ingredients on their menu and let them represent them. It could be said that it was a way of entrusting one's emotions, whether it was family, love, or friendship, to the ingredients. The other reason was that the existence of a full-course menu represented the final outcome. In the world of Toriko, only after finding your own full-course menu, the ingredients that your gourmet cells loved most, and eating them could you then eat the ingredients of Acacia's full-course menu and revive your appetite demon. If you ate the ingredients of your own full-course menu, then the revived appetite demon would be devoured by you, becoming your true appetite. Conversely, if you didn't eat the ingredients of your own full-course menu, then once you ate Acacia's menu and revived your appetite demon, the result would be that you would be devoured by it, becoming the nourishment for its true revival. So, if you didn't want to be devoured by your own appetite, you needed a full-course menu. For 99.999% of the people in this world, they didn't know this hidden meaning. And not many of them could eat all Acacia's full-course menu and revive the appetite demon in their bodies. So for them, this rule could almost be ignored. But in Setsuno's eyes, this was very important for Yuki. Yuki, my boy, I don't know what you're thinking, but you must establish a full-course menu. Find the 8 ingredients that suit you best. With your talent, you will surely capture the ingredients of Acacia's full-course menu. But if you don't eat your own full-course menu first, then you'll be finished. Setsuno also knew this hidden condition. Ichirya had long gotten the news from the Red Nitro and Dawn Slime, so he would naturally tell Jiro and her. Even the people in the Gourmet Corp knew. After all, it concerned Midora's life. Ichirya knew very well that Midora had the ability to collect all of Acacia's full-course menu, so he would tell him the news. He was his brother. He couldn't just let him be, even if he was very rebellious. Now Setsuno was also glad. It was a good thing she had asked. I know. If I don't collect my own full-course menu, then once I eat Acacia's full-course menu, I will be devoured by my appetite demon, becoming the nourishment for its revival. But my gourmet cells are special, so this won't happen. You can rest assured, Yuki said with a smile. He naturally knew she meant well, but he didn't even have an appetite demon, so there was no question of being devoured by one. Your gourmet cells really are special. Hearing his words, Setsuno was stunned for a moment and then understood. She knew very well that since he knew the stakes, he would definitely not be reckless in such a matter. He was a person with a plan, and he was very independent. While she and Jiro would give him some suggestions from time to time, he would only adopt a part of them, not all of them. This is the first time I've heard of such a thing. Granny Ayam was also very surprised. She had never heard of this before. Very few people know about this. The difficulty of eating all Acacia's full-course menu is much greater than collecting a suitable full-course menu for yourself. Setsuno shook her head. That was not a lie at all. Acacia's full-course menu only matured once every few hundred years. Besides a few people like Acacia's students, the lifespan of others was only a little over 100 years. So, waiting for Acacia's full-course menu to mature was a problem in itself, not to mention capturing them. Not every ingredient was related to the 8 kings, quite a few were. To get them, you had to pass through the 8 kings. In the entire human world, only Acacia's students could do that. After capturing the ingredients, there was still the matter of preparing them. The others were fine, but Another, Adam, and God, the difficulty of preparing these 3 was so high that even the Blue Nitro couldn't say they could succeed every time. In the story, before this time, the capture of Acacia's full-course menu was only done by the Blue Nitro. They naturally wouldn't share them with humans. That's true. There's no need to struggle with it so much. Those ingredients are not for me to touch. Granny Ayam was also very direct. She wasn't frustrated, she just felt it was a fact. Since it was a fact, there was no need to dwell on it. Later, Nono also ate the Corona sunflower. Surprisingly, its compatibility with her was extremely high. This situation surprised even Setsuno. Because Nono's ability was mainly ice, and though the Corona sunflower had no attribute, it absorbed a large amount of sunlight and should have been the opposite of her ice ability. But she never expected that Nono would be so compatible with it. It was truly incredible. Nono's gourmet cells activated once again. After that, Yuki turned his attention to the wolf fire dragon. Granny Ayam's transplanting work was also complete. The next morning, the group came to the altar. There was still one Corona sunflower inserted on it. This one was still supplying energy, but it was clearly not enough. So, the seal was already beginning to undo itself. But because there was still some energy supply, the speed of its undoing was not as fast as in the original story. Granny Ayam, please move the last Corona sunflower. That way, the seal will break a little faster. Yuki said. Hearing this, she didn't waste any words. Since they had decided to undo the seal, there was no need to waste time. As the last sunflower was removed, the speed of the seal's release became even faster. There were a large number of red nitro symbols on the sealing device. These symbols were now all glowing with a red light, which meant the seal was about to be broken. As the red symbols continuously moved, soon, the seal was released. A massive black substance suddenly burst open, and a behemoth gradually unfurled its body. This behemoth was the wolf fire dragon. Its massive claws directly grabbed onto a mountain, and its other claw grabbed onto another mountain far away. This thing is huge. Seeing its full appearance, Yuki was also a bit surprised. This wolf fire dragon was much larger than it had appeared in the movie. This size, it was probably no less than the Horse King, maybe even a little bigger. In this world, the 8 kings were not the largest. There were plenty of creatures larger than them. Especially the Monkey King, Bambina. In the gourmet world, it was hard to find a creature smaller than it. After all, in its disguised state, Bambina was less than 1.7 meters tall. Even after undoing the disguise, its size was only a little over 3 meters. This size was considered small even in the human world, let alone the gourmet world, which was full of giant beasts. Of course, the Monkey King's strength was there. So what if it was small? Its combat power was strong. To be able to become one of the 8 kings was not just for show, it was earned through real battles. It is indeed very big. It feels like it's almost caught up to the Horse King. But a large size doesn't mean it's strong. This thing has been sealed for so long. Judging from its aura, Setsuno felt that one slash from her would be enough to kill it. Yuki also saw this. He had no intention of fighting it. This thing could suppress Toriko and the others before they used their combined attack, but it couldn't suppress him. Taking out his exclusive knife, an ingredient like this was worthy of him using it. With one slash, a blade of light directly beheaded the wolf fire dragon. Boom! At this moment, there was still a hint of confusion in its eyes. After all, it had just been unsealed and had finally gained its freedom. But with one slash, it found its head separated from its body. Though the creatures of the gourmet world had very strong life force, very few could guarantee they wouldn't die after being beheaded. Soon, the pupils of the wolf fire dragon dilated. Its aura gradually weakened and finally disappeared. But Yuki knew the details of this thing. The soul in its body would take at least 3 days to dissipate. So he naturally wouldn't eat it now. Instead, he directly used knocking to preserve it. There was no need to worry about other creatures approaching and eating its flesh. Though the wolf fire dragon was already dead, its aura wouldn't dissipate in a short time, so there was no need to worry about other creatures approaching. Its aura was still very terrifying. How are we going to move such a big thing? Nono couldn't help but ask. The size of the wolf fire dragon was too large, it was very difficult to take it out. Leave it to me. I'll drag it out through the sea. That's the only way to get it out without destroying the dome. Yuki said that they could only go by water. The passage they had come in through couldn't possibly accommodate a being the size of the Horse King. You'll have to take it out of the Hungry Triangle first. Then we can notify the IGO to come and transport it. Setsuno knew that transporting such an ingredient was very annoying. And it wasn't just this wolf fire dragon, but also the other ingredients they had collected. She could tie the other ingredients to the jellyfish and transport them out. Let's wait here for a few days. After this thing's soul dissipates, we'll eat a little and then leave. Yuki said. Hearing his words, the group was very much in agreement. They stayed here for a few days, waiting for the wolf fire dragon's soul to dissipate. At the same time, they continued to explore this red nitro ruin to see if they could find anything else, just like the hidden barbecue grill. Chapter 177. The hibernating red nitro, journey to the food honor temple. After spending a few days exploring the former Biotope 1, Yuki stumbled upon something incredible, a secret cave hidden deep beneath the earth. It was a strange discovery. The cave was incredibly well hidden, so much so that he had missed it entirely on his initial sweep of the area. The only reason he found it was an inexplicable pull, a gut feeling that he needed to be there. Yuki knew exactly what that feeling was. His food luck kicking in. Those with powerful food luck are often guided by it, an intuition that leads them to exactly what they need to find. It was just like when Komatsu was searching for the Woolstar sauce fruit, his food luck subconsciously guided his path, even causing a fruit to ripen at the perfect moment after he found his prize. Yuki was experiencing the same thing. Without a specific target in mind, his food luck would randomly guide him toward anything of value in the vicinity. But now, he had a clear goal, to see if there were any hidden secrets left in this place. And so, his food luck had led him here. The entrance to the secret cave was located inside a mountain, but there was no visible passage. It had clearly been sealed off on purpose. Smashing his way directly through the mountain, Yuki found the entrance leading down. He then descended for nearly 20 kilometers before finally reaching the bottom of the cavern. This must be some kind of shelter. And the materials, they're designed to block any kind of detection. Yuki looked at the layers of shielding and the materials used with a sense of weary admiration. The defenses here were ridiculously thorough. He recognized the materials from the knowledge he had gained from Yosaku. They were designed to block various types of scans and surveillance. Combined with its location 20 kilometers underground, it was no wonder he had missed it at first. It was only thanks to the guidance of his food luck that he had found it at all. After making his way to the very bottom, Yuki finally understood what this place was. So many hibernating red nitro, there have to be more here than in the gourmet pyramid. Yuki stared at the countless red nitro in their state of suspended animation. Unlike the ones in the gourmet pyramid, these weren't placed in coffins. They were simply lying all over the floor, a vast, silent crowd. He also spotted inscriptions on the walls. After deciphering the text, he finally pieced together their story. Back when the Red Nitro race was at its peak, their population was considerable, and they had settlements scattered across the globe, much like humans. They had outposts not only in the human world but across the gourmet world as well, even forming different kingdoms. The Red Nitro here were from a different tribe than the ones in the Gourmet Pyramid, but they were connected. When the Gourmet Pyramid Nitro were attacked by the Blue Nitro, they sent a message here. The Red Nitro of the former Biotope 1 received the news and immediately reacted. The Gourmet Pyramid Nitro were undoubtedly the most developed and powerful of all the Red Nitro tribes in the human world. So, when they sent out the warning and admitted that they were completely powerless against the Blue Nitro, the other tribes abandoned any thought of direct confrontation. They knew their own strength. Even if they were from different regions, they knew how powerful the Gourmet Pyramid tribe was. If even they were defeated so easily, then the others stood no chance. So, to preserve a part of their race, the Red Nitro of the former Biotope 1 devised a desperate plan. They split their people into 3 groups, one to remain behind in the biotope, another to hide in the shelter Yuki had just found, and a final group to act as a decoy, pretending to flee the area. Their strategy worked. When the Blue Nitro arrived, they found the small contingent left to resist and the group feigning flight. The Blue Nitro were arrogant, they never believed the Red Nitro could pose any real threat. So, those 2 groups successfully diverted the Blue Nitro's attention. Combined with how well hidden this shelter was, the Red Nitro here escaped the purge. After reaching the shelter, they recorded the events and immediately entered a state of suspended animation. By doing so, they completely masked their presence. For all intents and purposes, a hibernating Red Nitro was no different from a dead one. While there was a risk of never waking up, it was still better than being captured by the Blue Nitro. The Red Nitro here didn't know what the Blue Nitro wanted with them, but they knew one thing for certain: it wouldn't be anything good. Given the choice, it was better to enter hibernation. At least there was a sliver of hope. However, their comrades never came for them. Once in suspended animation, they couldn't wake up without contact with liquid. Now, Yuki had found them. He felt a pang of disappointment. He wasn't particularly interested in the Nitro race, he'd been hoping for a rare ingredient. Instead, he'd found a bunker full of sleeping aliens. After checking the surroundings and confirming there was nothing else of value, Yuki left and told Setsuno and the others what he had found. Hearing his story, they were incredibly curious and immediately followed him back to the site. "I can't believe so many Red Nitro were hidden here." Setsuno looked at the sea of hibernating figures on the floor with a sense of wonder. She decided she would inform Ichiryu about this when she returned. While these Red Nitro might not be of much use to them personally, they could be valuable to the IGO. After exploring the shelter, Yuki no longer felt the pull of his food luck, which meant there was nothing else of value in the old Biotope 1. Don't you think you should come with us? You're getting older. I know you want to wait for Jirim here, but that man, he isn't worth waiting for anymore." Before they left, Setsuno finally spoke her mind to her old friend. She knew her words might hurt, but sometimes, the truth was the swiftest blade, and a clean break was better than a prolonged ache. Setsuno didn't believe for a second that Jirim, after being gone for decades, would suddenly have a change of heart and come back for Granny Ayam. That man was a lost cause. Granny Ayam hesitated. She didn't know if she should keep waiting. After a long moment of thought, her expression hardened with resolve. "I think I'll wait a little longer. Besides, I've been away from the outside world for so long, I'm used to life here. If I suddenly left, I wouldn't be able to adjust." In the end, Granny Ayam chose to stay. Setsuno could only sigh. It seemed her friend truly loved Jirim too much, but unfortunately, that scumbag had no idea how to cherish her. "If that's your decision, then I won't press you. But if you ever change your mind, use this to contact me. The communication tools you have here are useless in a place like this. This is the latest model from the IGO. Since we're still in the human world, it should be able to reach me." Setsuno handed a communicator to Granny Ayam. It wasn't that Ayam hadn't wanted to contact the outside world all these years, she simply couldn't. She had come here decades ago, and the technology back then wasn't as advanced as it was now. The old communication devices couldn't reach the outside world. But now, as long as you were in the human world, even in a place like the Hungry Triangle, you could easily contact the outside. After a final farewell to Granny Ayam, the group left. Yuki carried the corpse of the wolf-fire dragon out through the sea. The other ingredients were left to Setsuno. In the water, Yuki could clearly sense numerous powerful beasts eyeing the wolf-fire dragon's flesh. But with a single release of his aura, they scattered like frightened birds. Yuki's power was something they couldn't possibly contend with. Faced with a choice between food and their lives, these intelligent creatures naturally chose life. There was no need to die for a meal they couldn't get. After leaving the former Biotope 1, Yuki placed the wolf fire dragon on the nearest island and had the IGO come to transport it. Aside from the portion given to the IGO, the rest would be sent to Setsuno's kitchen. As for Yuki, he took Nono and headed for a different destination. Yuki had accepted Nono as his partner. He had to admit, having a devoted fan by his side provided a pretty good morale boost, and he and Nono got along very well. Of course, if he were heading to the gourmet world, he wouldn't take her with him unless he was absolutely confident in his ability to protect them both. But in the human world, it was fine. He could roam freely. Their next destination was the Food Honor Temple. There was still an ingredient there called the bubble fruit. It would be useful for both his and Nono's gourmet cells. As for how to get into the Food Honor Temple, for Yuki, it was quite easy. Although his path of food honor wasn't the gratitude-based one, his mastery was so high that he could easily simulate that emotion for the temple to detect. Of course, he could also just suppress his aura. If he did that, the Food Honor Temple wouldn't even sense his presence, and he could just stroll right in. I remember the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant is near the Food Honor Temple. But its original head chef, Granny Chio, has disappeared. Now the head chef is her apprentice, Chef Kairu. After arriving in the Sea of Trees, Nono spoke up. Both the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant and the Food Honor Temple were places she had been to before. So, she was quite familiar with the area. Then let's go to the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant first. A 10-star restaurant isn't easy to get into, Yuki said. Any restaurant that could achieve a 10-star rating had chefs who were a cut above the rest. But conversely, getting a meal there was extremely difficult. Under Nono's guidance, Yuki and Nono quickly arrived at the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant. Since both of them were proficient in food honor, the restaurant didn't disappear before their eyes. Is someone there? Just as the two knocked, a voice came from inside. The door then opened, and a person dressed like a ninja appeared. Yuki recognized her immediately. It was Kairu. Nono? What are you doing here? However, upon seeing Nono, Kairu exclaimed in surprise. It was clear she knew Nono, and their relationship seemed to be quite good. Chapter 178, The Delicate Style Cuisine, is shocked Kairu. Long time no see, Kairu. Mr. Yuki and I are on our way to the Food Honor Temple. Since the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant is also here, we decided to stop by for a visit, Nono said with a smile. She and Kairu were friends. After all, before Granny Chio had joined the Gourmet Corp, she and Setsuno had also had a very good relationship. Nono and Kairu were both of the younger generation. Since their teachers were on good terms, they naturally were as well. But Kairu was still a bit behind Nono because her food honor hadn't yet reached the master level. This wasn't just Yuki's speculation, Shinshin was the best proof. Anyone whose food honor reached the master level would earn his recognition, and he would remember their name. In the original story, Kairu hadn't earned his recognition. He would always get her name wrong. This showed that her food honor hadn't reached the master level. Actually, everyone who worked at the Disappearing Cuisine restaurant had at least a basic level of food honor, but not a single one had reached the master level. The value of mastering food honor was still quite high. Mr. Yuki? I remember now. You're the chef Yuki who created the century soup with Granny Setsuno. Hearing his name, Kairo quickly reacted. After all, the century soup had caused quite a stir, so his name was quite well known among these top-tier chefs. A pleasure to meet you, Ms. Kairo. Yuki also politely greeted her. A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Yuki. Please, come in. With that, Kairo prepared slippers for them. Yuki didn't mind. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Since he was here to eat, he would follow their rules. Soon, led by Kairo, the two of them came to the dining table. No, you and Mr. Yuki are. At this moment, Kairo also asked the question she was very curious about. That's right. Mr. Yuki and I are partners now. Saying this, Nono beamed. After all, to be able to partner with someone she admired was truly something to be happy about. I see. But aren't you two both chefs? Kairo nodded but was still a bit confused. A chef partnering with another chef, such a combination was quite rare. Generally, partners would choose different professions so they could help each other out. Mr. Yuki is indeed a chef. But he is also a very strong gourmet hunter, as well as a sharpener and a reviver. Nono proudly introduced him. Yuki was truly a monster in these fields. While these were his achievements, for Nono, as his partner, the more outstanding he was, the prouder she was. Hearing this, a few question marks instantly appeared above Kairo's head. One person being a chef and a gourmet hunter, or even a chef and a sharpener, she could understand. But how did four professions come together? It's incredible, right? In sharpening skills, he's on par with Milk. In cooking, he can already be compared to my master. In the reviver field, he has also reached the level of Mr. Yasaku. As for his strength, he is already qualified to go to the gourmet world. At this moment, Nono had turned into a pure Yuki fangirl. And what she said was all true. But when these words were said, they sounded different to others' ears. That can't be true. To have so many professions is one thing, but how could he possibly reach such a high level in all of them? Before Kairo could speak, Kairon, who had come with the menu, spoke up. He was Kairo's assistant, a slightly chubby boy. In the original story, he was the one who had taken the Yahaumaki and had lured Toriko and the others over. Yuki felt that Kairon's character and intelligence were a bit lacking. Though the Yahaumaki was just left there in the forest, it wasn't his. To suddenly appear there, it clearly belonged to someone. In that case, to take it without asking was pure theft. After Toriko and Komatsu caught up, he had been constantly mocking and gloating. This showed that his character was a bit problematic, though he wasn't some heinous villain. And from his terrified expression when Kairo said she would send him back to the Food Honor Temple, his character was destined to always suffer there. And anyone who could always suffer in the Food Honor Temple was naturally a problematic person. In a place like the Food Honor Temple, anyone might suffer when they first went. But if you were still suffering after a period of time, then there was definitely a problem with your character. As for his lack of brains, it was evident both in the original story and now. The original story showed it when he took the Yahaumaki without knowing whose it was. A sushi of that giant size, a normal person couldn't make it. And the disappearing cuisine restaurant no longer had Granny Chiyo's protection. So his actions were undoubtedly asking for big trouble. He was lucky he ran into Toriko and Komatsu. If it had been members of the Gourmet Corp, his fate would not have been good. Kairon, don't be rude. Hearing his words, Kairo was a bit helpless and immediately reprimanded him. Hearing this, Kairon also reacted and immediately shut his mouth. My apologies, Nono, and Chef Yuki. This is Kairon. He sometimes speaks without thinking. Please forgive him. The guest was a guest. Kairo did this very well. No matter what kind of guests came, whether they could eat the dishes of the disappearing cuisine restaurant or not, she would be very patient and polite. This was truly rare. After all, if you opened a restaurant, you had to respect the customers. Not to say you had to treat them as so-called gods, but you had to be polite and put the customer first. Compared to those famous but arrogant shops, the disappearing cuisine restaurant that Kairu ran was indeed very good. No need to apologize, Chef Kairu.
Yuki didn't mind. To be honest, refuting and doubting was the normal reaction.
If anyone had believed it directly, he would have suspected they had a problem with their brain.
Kairu didn't say much more to his words.
It was clear that his attitude was very good, and he wouldn't blame them for such a thing. This made her let out a sigh of relief.
Many guests came here. People were always of all sorts.
Some were very magnanimous, but some were very petty and would blow up any little thing. This was why she was so careful. Actually, there was another reason. She had always wanted to maintain the reputation of the disappearing cuisine restaurant. Because it was, after all, founded by her master, Granny Chio. Though she was now missing and Kairu was in charge, this had also put her in a similar situation to the second-generation Milk. She didn't want her master's reputation to be damaged because of her.
The second-generation Milk was the same.
But the good thing about Kairu was that she was confident enough and wouldn't be lost.
Later, Yuki and Nono also looked at the menu. Yuki very directly ordered everything on it. Since they were here, they naturally had to eat everything. As for the price, though it was high, for him, it was nothing. He had the unlimited black card that Setsuno had given him. Money was something that people of his level could get with ease. He really ordered the entire menu. I wonder how much they'll be able to eat in the end. After Kairu and Kairin went to the kitchen, Kairin couldn't help but say. Because the delicate style cuisine here was so special, many guests could barely eat a few dishes. In his eyes, Yuki should also be that type. He estimated that he wouldn't be able to eat much either. Kairin, talking about people behind their backs is a bad habit. But my view is the opposite of yours. I think they can eat every single dish.
Kairu said with a smile.
Impossible. No one has ever been able to eat every dish here. Kairin shook his head.
It was also because Chin hadn't come back after Granny Chio left. In the original story, he only came to pick up Toriko and Komatsu.
So, Kairin had never seen anyone who could eat all these dishes. In that case, let's make a bet.
If they can eat all the dishes, then you'll go to the Food Honor Temple to train for a period of time. If they can't, then for the next period of time, I won't be so strict with you.
How about it? Kairu suddenly thought of a way to deal with Kairin's temperament. Alright, I agree. Kairin immediately agreed.
In his eyes, this was a complete freebie.
Seeing him like this, Kairu couldn't help but smile.
Since she dared to make the bet, she was naturally confident. Nono was a master of Food Honor, and she had also said their purpose was to capture the bubble fruit. This meant that Yuki was definitely also a master of Food Honor.
Otherwise, capturing the bubble fruit would be a joke.
Knowing that both of them were masters of Food Honor, then they could naturally eat every dish in the disappearing cuisine restaurant.
And even if she lost the bet, it didn't matter.
She had only said she wouldn't be so strict with Kairin for a period of time. How long that period was up to her. Thinking of this, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up. She then began to prepare her dishes.
Soon, one dish after another was brought to Nono and Yuki.
These dishes all required very special conditions to be eaten.
For example, the sparkling star rice.
You had to eat it without blinking, but the bright light would make your eyes want to close. Once you blinked, the star rice would turn into a pile of waste. There was also the sunshine cheese, which could only be eaten in the sunlight. If you ate it without sunlight, it would become very unappetizing and hard. Besides that, there were other things that required all sorts of fine operations to be eaten. However, just as Kairin had served the dishes and was ready to watch the show, he found that Yuki and Nono were eating very casually.
And most critically, the ingredients had no reaction at all.
Although in his eyes, many things were done incorrectly, the ingredients didn't react at all, which was very incredible. This was the benefit of mastering Food Honor. You could be reckless. As long as you grasped the specific situation of the ingredients, you didn't need to be so careful. Soon, one dish after another went into their stomachs.
Stop looking, Chiron. Go and prepare more dishes.
At the rate they're eating, the ingredients in the back kitchen will soon be finished,
Cairo urged.
While Chiron hadn't come back to his senses yet, hearing her words, he subconsciously went to help. In the end, all the prepared ingredients in the entire disappearing cuisine restaurant were eaten by the two of them.
The restaurant didn't prepare too many ingredients.
In this sea of trees, it was difficult to run into guests who came on their own. So, the ingredients prepared were usually eaten by Cairo and the others themselves if there were no guests. But today, they were all sold to Yuki and Nono. The dishes of the delicate style are very good.
But without a bit of proficiency in food honor, it's not so easy to eat them, Yuki remarked.
The delicate style was a test for both the chef and the customer. The chef needed extremely high culinary skills to prepare these ingredients, and the customer also needed a certain level of food honor to eat them. Chapter 179, The Million Tomato, News of Chio, the voice of an ingredient.
It can't be helped. This is the delicate style that Master passed down. I can't change it,
Cairo said with a helpless sigh. As a chef, she wanted her guests to be able to eat more of her food, but this was the reality of it.
Actually, there is a way to change it.
These ingredients have a much simpler, special preparation method.
Chef Cairo, could you bring me an unprepared million tomato? Yuki asked. An unprepared million tomato?
Of course. Hearing his words, Cairo knew he wasn't just talking nonsense. He was clearly going to prepare the million tomato using a different method. She immediately brought one over. The million tomato looked smaller than a regular tomato, but it had a full 1,000 layers of skin. For the dishes she served to her guests, Cairo would remove all 1,000 layers. But even then, you had to be incredibly careful when eating it. Because without its skin, the million tomato was even more fragile. The slightest bit of force would cause it to shatter. After taking the million tomato, Yuki thanked Cairo. He then activated his ability, and the tomato began to emit a voice next to his ear.
What is that?
Though Chiron was also a chef, he had never seen anything like it.
Is that the voice of the ingredient? Unbelievable. Cairo's eyes went wide. It was unmistakable.
Only when a chef could hear an ingredient's voice would it emit such a gentle, golden light. But what she didn't understand was how he had done it. Could he control it at will, hearing the voice of any ingredient, anytime, anywhere? She found it incredible, yet the scene playing out before her proved it was possible.
After listening to the ingredient's voice, Yuki knew exactly what to do. He took out his own knife. The moment it appeared, it once again captured the attention of both Cairo and Chiron. That knife, its aura is so sharp. It's even sharper than Master's.
Cairo could clearly feel the sharp presence of the blade. It was even more potent than Granny Chio's knife had been.
This left her even more astounded.
She suddenly remembered that Yuki was also a master sharpener. Could it be that he had forged this knife himself? If so, that was truly terrifying.
Taking out the knife, though it was large, Yuki handled it with absolute ease.
A flash of light from the blade, and the 1,000 layers of skin that would have taken a long time to peel were sliced off in the blink of an eye.
So fast. Cairo's eyes went wide again. She could now be completely certain that Nono hadn't been exaggerating. Yuki's culinary skills were indeed on par with Granny Setsuno's.
You know, even her own master, Granny Chio, couldn't remove the 1,000 layers of a million tomato in an instant. But Yuki wasn't finished.
He continued to use his knife to slice the now peeled tomato.
Logically, cutting it further should have caused it to shatter. But that was only because the person cutting it lacked the skill.
For Yuki, slicing a million tomato couldn't be simpler.
Soon, the tomato was cut into perfectly uniform slices and arranged neatly on a plate.
Done.
A million tomato prepared this way can be eaten by anyone, without having to worry about it shattering.
Yuki said. At this moment, Kairu and Nono both noticed that the structure of the tomato had changed. It was clear that with his series of cuts, he had indeed made it possible for anyone to eat it. Mr. Yuki, how did you cut it just now? You were too fast, we couldn't see it at all. Nono said. Even she, a master of food honor with considerable strength, couldn't see how he had wielded the knife. The speed was simply too great. Hearing this, Yuki began to explain to the two of them how to cut the million tomato. Though it had looked like he had done it in an instant, in that single moment, he had made over 10,000 cuts. It wasn't just a single slice. You had to find the cutting points. Luckily, the cutting points for a million tomato were always the same. Later, the three of them went to the kitchen. Under Yuki's guidance, Nono and Kairu began to practice cutting the million tomato. From the very first cut, both of them were completely in the zone. After all, they were both very skilled. But Kairu was still a bit behind Nono. So, on her first try, she failed after about 500 cuts. As for Nono, she failed after over 7,000 cuts. This was the difference between mastering food honor and not. Yuki estimated that Nono just needed to be a little more careful, and she would succeed in another 1 or 2 tries. As for Kairu, she might still need some time. As for Kairin, who was standing on the side, he was completely dumbfounded. He also realized one thing: it looked like he was going to the food honor temple after all. As for welshing on the bet, while he could, it would mean he would be permanently marginalized by Kairu. That wasn't what he wanted. So, for the next period of time, he could only go to the food honor temple and suffer. By the end of the day, Nono had succeeded. But Kairu's best attempt had failed at over 6,000 cuts. Though she kept failing, she could clearly feel her own progress, so she was very happy. Kairu also invited Yuki and Nono to stay the night. Considering Nono was her good friend, Yuki also chose to stay. Kairu, have you heard anything about Granny Chio? During dinner, Nono asked. Her disappearance had caused quite a stir back then. Many of the top chefs knew about it. No. Though I've been looking for any news of Master, I haven't found anything. I don't know where she could have gone. At this moment, Kairu was very frustrated. She was worried about her master. After all, she was getting on in years. Though she was strong, in this dangerous world, she could still lose her life. I might know something about her. However, Yuki's one sentence immediately drew the attention of both of them. Chef Yuki, you know where my master is? Hearing this, Kairu shot up from the table, asking anxiously. That's right, I have some information. But please, don't get excited. After Yuki spoke, Kairu also realized her behavior was a bit rude and immediately sat back down, her eyes fixed on him, hoping for an answer. I only have a general idea about Granny Chio. It seems, she has joined the Gourmet Corporation. As for the reason, I'm not sure. Yuki knew why she had joined the Gourmet Corp, to revive her son. Originally, she didn't have to join. But to obtain the ultimate revival ingredient, Center, was not something she could do alone. At first, she had gone to Chin Chin Chin. But he was different from her. He was a master of food honor. His philosophy was to follow the course of nature. Their son, Ichiru, had been weak since birth and had been in the hospital his whole life. His condition had finally taken a turn for the better, so Granny Chio had eagerly taken him out, wanting to bring him to the disappearing cuisine restaurant to eat her cooking. But on the way, his condition had worsened again, and in the end, he had passed away. As a mother, how could she let go after watching her own son die? So, she had searched all sorts of materials and had finally learned of Center. As long as she had it, she felt there was a chance her son could be revived. She wasn't wrong about that. But the problem was, to revive Ichiru, she would also need a body, and she would have to find his soul and bring it back. And a single piece of Center wasn't enough. Though the concept of death in the world of Toriko was weakened, the difficulty of revival was extremely high. The Gourmet Corp? Why did Master join the Gourmet Corp? Kairu was in disbelief.
Granny Chio had learned the path of gratitude in food honor. For someone with that kind of character to join the Gourmet Corp. The specific reason, you might have to ask Master Chin Chin Chin. Yuki shifted the focus to him. Chin 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 didn't know where she had gone now, but if he were told she had joined the Gourmet Corp, he would definitely figure out the reason immediately. Before she disappeared, she had had a big fight with him over reviving their son. That's right. Master Chin must know something. Tomorrow, I'll go to the Food Honor Temple with you. Kairoi needed to find out what had happened to her master. As Yuki had said, the answer might be at the Food Honor Temple. Chin 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 must know something. Soon, they finished dinner and went to rest. Of course, Kairu and Kairin couldn't sleep. Kairu was kept awake by thoughts of her master. As for Kairin, he was kept awake by thoughts of his own miserable future. Just like that, the next day came. Early in the morning, Kairu pulled Kairin out of bed and had him pack his bags. The group of four then set off for the Food Honor Temple. The disappearing cuisine restaurant was some distance away, but everyone was fast on their feet, so it only took a few hours. It was mainly because Kairu and her assistant were too slow. Yuki didn't want to just carry them, so that's why it took a few hours. Otherwise, he could have been there in minutes. Back in this place again. At this moment, Kairin's face was dark. It couldn't be helped, this place was like a nightmare for him. Kairin, clear your mind of distracting thoughts. Otherwise, you won't even be able to get through the gate. Though he had been here before and he usually stayed at the disappearing cuisine restaurant, the Food Honor Temple was much stricter. So, if he didn't adjust his mindset, he wouldn't even be able to enter. And sure enough, just as he lifted his foot, the stairs suddenly split open, and a series of sharp spikes shot out. This startled him. Luckily, his speed wasn't slow, otherwise, his foot would have been pierced. At this moment, he also remembered his previous visits and quickly adjusted his mindset. This time, he wasn't targeted by the temple. As for Yuki and Nono, both of them were masters of food honor. By simply simulating a sense of gratitude, the temple wouldn't target them. Though Kairu's food honor hadn't reached the master level, she wasn't far off, so she wasn't affected either. Isn't that Chef Kairu? And Chef Nono? What brings you to the Food Honor Temple? After entering, the group soon saw a vice master. These vice masters were the teachers of the temple. Their level of food honor was much higher than an average person's, but they were still a long way from mastery. Chin 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 never got their names right. The reason he kept them around was to continue spreading the teachings of the temple. We're here to visit Master Chin. Is he in the temple? Kairu asked. She was very familiar with the vice master here. Many of them would also go to the disappearing cuisine restaurant to eat. But even they couldn't eat everything there. Master Chin is in the main hall. I'll take you there. The vice master didn't waste any words and led them directly to the main hall. At this moment, Chin 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 was sitting cross-legged in the hall, in a state of food meditation. Hiss. Kairin's eyes went wide. He was no stranger to the torch horsetail. Chapter 180, A Stubborn Granny Chio, Yuki's Suggestion. Torch horsetail was a very common plant. But in the Food Honor Temple, it was a bit different. It had been specially modified. These modified torch horsetails could sense a person's heart of gratitude. They were lit by gratitude and kept burning by it. The moment a distracting thought appeared, they would be extinguished. This modified plant was part of a training program that everyone who came to the temple had to go through, food meditation, just like a monk's meditation. The entry-level requirement was to keep the torch horsetail burning for half an hour. Once that was done, you had entered the path of food meditation. The advanced training was to maintain it for a longer time and with a greater number. For someone like Chin Chin Chin, he could easily maintain them even if the entire hall were filled. He had developed the path of gratitude in food honor to its extreme. It's you, Kairos. And this little boy. I remember his name is Chihiro, right? And Ms. Setsuno's apprentice, Nono. And you are?
P.S. Chin is known for consistently getting names wrong. Seeing them, Chin opened his eyes. As he spoke, the Torch Horsetails were not affected in the slightest. This was the mark of mastering food honor. Even when doing other things, your heart would not have any distracting thoughts, and the Torch Horsetails would not be extinguished. But at this moment, he had gotten Kairu's and Chiron's names wrong. That was normal, after all, their food honor hadn't reached the master level yet. But Nono was different. Her food honor had reached the master level, so he didn't get her name wrong. As for Yuki, Chin also sensed his master level food honor, so he asked for his name. It's Kairu, Master Chin. And this is Chef Yuki, a very impressive chef. Kairu reminded him. Though she knew he definitely wouldn't remember her name, she still reminded him. She also introduced Yuki. I see. A pleasure to meet you, Chef Yuki. Chin also stood up from his position. At this moment, the Torch Horsetails were all extinguished. After learning that the visitor was Yuki, he naturally couldn't just sit and watch. Both Setsuno and Ichiriya held him in high regard. They had also received some news. His strength might not be enough to contend with them yet, but his rate of improvement was too fast. Catching up to and surpassing them would be an easy matter. A pleasure to meet you, Master Chin. Yuki also greeted him. By the way, Kairu, why did you and Chiron come here? After asking the vice master named Cam to prepare some tea, Chin looked at her. In just a short while, he had already called her and Chiron by several different names. We have news of my master. Chef Yuki provided it. Kairu said. What? You have news of Chiyo? Tell me. Hearing this, Chin was no longer calm at all. He immediately asked. She was the person he cared about most in this world, but she had been missing for several years. Now that there was finally news, it would be strange if he could remain calm. He had had some guesses himself, but he had no way to confirm them. Chef Yuki said that Master has joined the Gourmet Corporation. But as far as I know, with her personality, it's impossible for her to join them. You are her partner, so you should know the reason. After she finished speaking, her eyes were fixed on him. Granny Chiyo had learned the path of gratitude in food honor. For someone with that kind of character to join the Gourmet Corp, she found it hard to believe. But it was Yuki who had said it, so she wasn't sure what was going on. Now she desperately wanted to know why she would do such a thing. The moment she spoke, Chin, who had been a bit agitated, fell silent. It was clear that he had already guessed the reason. You know the reason, don't you? Seeing him suddenly fall silent, she knew he must know something. So it has come to this. Sit down and let's talk slowly. I will tell you the whole story. With a sigh, he spoke. Soon, the vice master also came with the tea. The group sat down in the main hall and poured it. As for Chiron, he was no longer here. He had been handed over to the vice master by Kairu. He didn't need to know what came next. It all started when Chiyo and I were young. At that time, we were very much in love. Not long after becoming partners, we also had our own child. He began to tell the story of the past, including the situation with their child, their grief after his death, and how Chiyo had told him of her plan after learning of the ultimate revival ingredient. So Master was forced to join the Gourmet Corp because she couldn't get your help to revive Ichiru? After hearing the story, Kairu finally understood why her master, with her character, would join them. If she hadn't been forced, she would never have made such a decision. That's right. Besides that, I can't think of any other reason for her to join them. He nodded with a helpless sigh. Why? Since that ingredient could revive Ichiru, why did you refuse? Kairu asked, very confused. Logically, as his father, he should also have wanted to see his son alive again. Why had he refused her back then? If he hadn't, then regardless of whether they could get the ingredient or not, at least her master wouldn't have joined a dark organization like the Gourmet Corp. Birth, old age, sickness, and death are all part of nature.
As a part of it, we naturally have to experience these things. Ichiru's body was weak since he was a child, and in the end, he passed away because of it. I was also very sad, but I didn't want to reverse this process. Otherwise, if he died and we revived him, then what about when we die? Would he have to find a way to revive us? And revival isn't so easy. You can't revive him just with one ultimate revival ingredient. And the location of the ultimate revival ingredient is Area Zero. That place is a forbidden zone for all life. And the only entrance is guarded by one of the 8 kings, the Dragon King Diraus. If I agreed, wouldn't I just be watching her go to her death? After he said all this, Yuki was certain. He was indeed a person, and he did have the idea of following the course of nature. But he had definitely also had the thought of reviving his son. And he had even gone to Ichiria to learn more about it, otherwise, he wouldn't have known so much. As he had said, forget that one ingredient couldn't revive a person. Even if it could, how to capture it was a problem. Area Zero wasn't on the surface of the earth but in its core. All the ingredients that appeared on the surface were first born in Area Zero. Countless different ingredients were born there every moment. The vast majority of these would fail to mature and would return to the earth. Only a very small number would succeed and appear on the surface. That place was the cradle of all ingredients, so it was naturally incredibly dangerous. The liquid inside would directly dissolve anyone who entered. In the original story, only 2 humans had entered. One was Aimaru. He had covered himself with a special fungus, which had to some extent resisted the corrosion of Area Zero. But this was also temporary, it couldn't permanently resist it. The other was Teppei. At that time, the Earth, to save itself, had directly ejected Aimaru from the surface, and he had landed right next to Teppei. Aimaru knew that wasn't a coincidence, so he directly covered Teppei with the fungus and pulled him into Area Zero. As for the other beings who could enter, they were naturally the Nitros. Area Zero itself was already scary enough, and there was an even bigger problem. There was only one entrance, and it was guarded by one of the 8 kings, the Dragon King Diraus. To enter under its nose was undoubtedly a fool's dream, unless you were one of Acacia's students. After Chin Chinchin said all this, Kairu also fell silent. Indeed, after thinking about it carefully, this matter couldn't be blamed on him. To put it bluntly, he was also considering her safety. If it were her, she would also have made the same choice. After all, for him, he had already lost one family member. He didn't want to lose another because of the one he had lost. Then, what do we do now? How can we bring Master back? In the end, she didn't blame him but asked for a solution. Since she knew her master was in the Gourmet Corp, she had to find a way to bring her back. I don't know. Chiyo is a very stubborn person. And her execution ability is very strong. Once she decides to do something, she will keep doing it until she succeeds or completely fails. He shook his head. He really had no way. If persuasion was useful, then he would dare to storm the Gourmet Corp alone, even though there was a high probability he would lose his own life. But for his wife, he wouldn't care about these things. But the problem was, it was useless for him to go. In her current state, she wouldn't listen to him at all. Even if he explained everything he knew now, she would think it was a lie he had made up to trick her into coming back. So at this moment, he also didn't know what to do. It felt like this matter had reached an irreversible point. I have a suggestion. At this moment, Yuki spoke up. His words also attracted everyone's attention. Granny Chiyo is a very stubborn person, so even if we find her and talk to her, it will be useless. It might even anger her. In that case, let's find a way to capture her and bring her back. That's better than letting her stay in the Gourmet Corp, right? After that, Master Chin, you can take her to CMS Setsuno and President Ichiryu. With them giving an explanation, as long as she calms down a little, she will understand. Of course, the most critical point is, Master Chin, you still shouldn't stop her. Even if it's impossible, you can still try. Whether it succeeds or not, it's better than doing nothing at all.
Yuki said. A person like her was a very obsessive type. The death of her son had already become an obsession. And most critically, in her view, his death was entirely because of her. Her sense of guilt was very strong. And that was indeed not a problem. The fault did lie with her. After all, the reason she had taken him out was because his condition had improved. This meant that there was a possibility he could be cured. It wasn't completely hopeless. But the reason he had died was because she had wanted to take him back and let him taste her cooking. This was also understandable. As a mother, how could she not want to see her child eat her food? But as Chin 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 had said, she was a very stubborn person. It was because of this stubbornness that she had taken him away before his body had been completely cured. Perhaps she had planned to bring him back for treatment later, but he hadn't waited until then. Because of her, her son had died. Even if Chin 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 didn't blame her, she wouldn't stop blaming herself. That was why she was thinking of doing these things to atone for her sins and reduce her sense of guilt. That wraps up this part of What If Fishing System in Food Wars World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.